2-7 in conference play. We've talked about a lot of good and bad about Maryland, but to me, it breaks down to the offensive line, and like Reed was just talking about, Clint Trickett. Clint Trickett is a good hire on paper because you look at Jacksonville State's offense last year, it's one of the best offenses at the Group of Six level. They had Cam Cook. They ran the ball 100 million times, and they were very good. But he was also the quarterback's coach on top of being the offense coordinator. I don't necessarily think they were phenomenal in terms of quarterback play last year. I don't know about him with the pairing of Malik Washington. That, and they also ran the ball statistically fifth most. Let me take a look here. I believe it was over nearly 60% of the time they ran the ball. And they only ran barely over 5.5 yards per play. So a lot of their rushing volume is a mask of what is a inefficient rush offense in terms of Jacksonville State. It's a good offense. They run the ball, but for the amount they run the ball, it's not as efficient as you'd like to see. So I really don't. I have my what's the word? I'm not sure about Clint Trickett at offense coordinator. A lot of people are saying that's a home run. I don't necessarily believe that. Malik Washington is going to be the speckling sparkle of sunshine on this pile of dog shit that is Maryland's offensive line. Like you said, that on the defensive line, they have some talent to work with. They lose Zahir Mathis, like you said. They could have a couple key playmakers on defense, but they were just not good situationally last year. And ultimately, all of this comes down to coaching. Coaching last year, they were not good. And I know they bring in a new offensive coordinator, they bring in a defensive coordinator, but in terms of who is running this team, the biggest issues with this team last year weren't with, there you go. The worst issues with this team weren't from a personnel standpoint, it went from a roster standpoint. It was from a Mike Locksley standpoint. I'm fully out on Mike Locksley. Like I think we've said, Mike Locksley should be done here. Malik Washington should go to a real football program where he won't be forced to throw 470 times, which is killing his efficiency. I think it's him having to be a superstar on this terrible offense. It is doing more harm than good, in all honesty.
You really, really need Maryland to have a bad year now. That's all I got to say for that clip alone.
Yeah, you kind of need Maryland to be terrible this year now.
Yeah, they got to be bad.
I have 4-8. If they're better than 4-8, it is what it is. I don't know. Are Maryland fans going to be mad at me? I haven't spoken to one Maryland fan this entire offseason.
Speaking of Maryland fans, I actually had one today comment on because I posted my ACC final projections, and I had a Maryland fan comment that they're going to beat Virginia Tech by 50.
Okay,
I'm sure. And then I just replied with James Franklin being 6-0 against Mike Locksley all time. So
Mike Locksley's just not a good head coach. I mean,
he's a great recruiter. Great recruiter, terrible head coach.
Yeah. When people talk about car salesmen, like Lane Kiffin's a car salesman, whatever. He
also dresses like one.
Fair, but you can't make that argument for any head coach that wins football games. Mike Locksley is the definition of a used car salesman. So I don't know why I said it like that.
That's actually a great. I've never even read or heard that before. So that's a great analogy. I like that. Jake is in a similar light to me. He has Maryland going 6-6, 3-6 in conference play. So by that estimation, Jake actually has Maryland beating Virginia Tech because he has all their losses in conference play.
No.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'll take that up with him after
it's a home game, so I get it. Virginia Tech's been put together through the portal, and it's James Franklin's first year, so I understand it. Yeah. But they're Virginia Tech is instantly going to be better in terms of offensive line. I don't think Maryland's going to have a ton of disruptors. I think Virginia Tech's going to be a much higher floor team than the Terrapins this season.
100%. And also, I understand it's the state school, but can we ditch the flag? I'm not a fan. I'm just not a fan. I'm going to put that out there. But so that's Maryland. Colton, you have your 16th spot open if you would like to fill that position.
This one hurts me as well, because I really like what David Braun is doing at Northwestern. I do have them 5-7, 2-7. Like you see, there's a log jam of 2-7 teams towards the bottom of this conference, in my estimation. The biggest thing for me is, while I think they can be decent for Northwestern standards, Northwest. I feel like I just said that incorrectly. They bring in Chip Kelly at offense coordinator. They bring in Jerry Neuheisel, who was the face of UCLA football last season. They make a couple good additions, but to me, the quarterback situation does not give me a ton of hope for this team. Aiden Childs, is there room for him to become what people thought he would be coming into college? Maybe. I'm not going to predict that. I'm not super high on him. Nico Marchiol, couldn't fully work out his game at West Virginia, transfers in from West Virginia, like I just said. Everywhere else, I do like this team. I just think their ceiling is capped off, one, with being Northwestern, and they don't traditionally pour a bunch of resources into this football program, and two, the quarterback situation and the offense as a whole, I'm not super high on in 2026.
So my view on Northwestern, and you pointed it out right at the top, I love David Braun. I think he's a super I'm not going to say underrated, because I think everyone understands that Northwestern is Northwestern, and it's a academic school first before a athletic school. So, but they pour a ton into their athletics programs to try to get them and be competitive. And I think David Braun is a great fit going into his fourth year. And I view this kind of similar to a Rutgers situation. They bring in a transfer quarterback, two transfer quarterbacks. I don't believe they've named a starter, but they have a great running back, Caleb Komolafe, nearly 1,000-yard rusher last year, and Griffin Wilde, nearly a 900-yard receiver, and ran all over Penn State last year. So, and that lives rent-free in my head. So anyway, Northwestern, I think, is going to be a solid team offensively. The Chip Kelly hire, not too sure about that. I'm kind of a wait and see on that, but I mean, he's been at so many stops in the NFL and in college. I mean, I think it kind of has to work out, because you take a step down from like an Ohio State, the Las Vegas Raiders, to Northwestern. I think this is kind of a last-ditch effort for Chip Kelly to try to get back in the head coaching game if he overachieves at Northwestern and has him humming on offense. The defense I kind of have questions about, but again, the David Braun defenses, his first few years, especially last year, they were at least competent. They were at least, what's the word I want to say? They were comparable to the offense. That's what I was looking for, comparable. So if the defense can at least have a pulse, I think this can be a very solid team next year. But I just am not seeing it right now, especially when you have a bye week in week 2, and then you have to play 11 straight games, namely on the road at Indiana, at Michigan State, at Oregon, at Ohio State, and at Minnesota, where you also mix in Penn State at home, Colorado at home, South Dakota State to open the season. That's not a pushover from the FCS at all. Rutgers, Iowa, Illinois. I mean, some of those home games they could potentially win just solely because they will be in their new stadium by the time they get to Big Ten play. But I mean, those road games are absolutely brutal. So solely because of schedule dynamics and some question marks that are holding me back believing in Chip Kelly, I will have Northwestern finishing in 15th, 4-8 overall, 1-8 in conference play.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Reed. That's exactly where I've got them in the exact same schedule I have, or prediction I have: 4-8, 1-8. I don't know what happened to my camera here, by the way, boys. It just cut out and will not turn back on. So we're in the dark now. But anyway,
he's cooked.
Yeah, that's right. We'll just block out over here. But no, I'm the same way. I think Northwestern is uphill battle for them. Thank you, boys. Solidarity on the broken camera. A lot of defensive concerns. Complete rebuild on the offense and the defensive line is going to be a struggle for them. I'm same thing with Chip Kelly. It's a flashy hire. It sounds great. It sounds cool, but is it going to pan out? I don't really know. I think he's kind of on the tail end out. Kind of more like a Bill Belichick than anyone else, to be honest. I don't know if it's as bad as that hire. I'm not saying that, but it's definitely not something that I'd be super pumped about if I was a Northwestern fan. I do like them bringing in Aiden Childs. I like him a lot, but he's getting a lot of hype. But we do remember he did get beat out at that job at Michigan State last year. He's a great quarterback, though. I do really like the hire of Jerry Newsell, or however you say his name, from UCLA. I think that's a good. He'll be able to, and do a good job as an OC. I think he'll have their offense rolling. But yeah, so many concerns for him. It's going to be a tough season. It is cool that they're getting to open up that $1 billion stadium this year. That'll be fun to watch some games there. So,
yeah, potential hypothetical stop on the Red Zone road trip. Just throwing that out there, maybe.
And ticket prices have been crazy, so
yeah, I know.
Need to get on the credential list for that one.
Don't remind me. Yeah,
but we can move on after this as well. We don't have to stick on Northwestern. I was going to bring it up if you weren't. That schedule is ridiculous. I have them starting the year 5-2, which is very, very strong.
Wow.
But obviously with that finishing on a 5-game skid, and that's because they go on the road to Autzen to play Oregon. They come back to play Iowa, who's going to be very strong. Essentially the same exact team, just one is way more stable and one has been doing it for longer and has way more experience in the Big Ten football, or not necessarily Big Ten football, but because Northwestern's been there. But in terms of like being a coherent team in the Big Ten, Iowa, Ohio State on the road, Minnesota on the road, and then at home versus Illinois. That is a brutal schedule. Brutal. If they got a bye week right before Oregon, I might have them honestly finishing in the 6-7 win range, but it's there you go. This guy.
Well, PED management thinks Northwestern is a potential sleeper team. I think he's taking more than performance-enhancing drugs, potentially. So, shout out to him. But yeah, Northwestern, we are not very high on collectively as a group here. Jake is in a similar range here in 15th place, also 4-8, 1-8 in conference play. So, just also want to point this out. I don't like that Jake is very aligned with me, record wise here. Don't like that. It's a common theme on this show, apparently.
They had Ento Saka last year too, right?
At A&M now, yes.
And they lost.
Shout out to that guy.
Yeah, that dude is an absolute stud.
Unit. Yeah. He's a freak. So
this is a grown ass.
That is a grown ass man for sure. And the fact that Northwestern of all places he was at is crazy. Yeah. Anyway, my 14th ranked team, and this is one that potentially could vastly outperform my projection of them. I'm going to have Wisconsin finishing in 14th, going 4-8, 2-7 in conference play. Of course, that one out of conference loss is going to be Notre Dame in my projections, but Wisconsin, this is one that could outperform my projection just solely because of the quarterback situation. I am higher on the quarterback situation than the team holistically with Colton Joseph coming over from Old Dominion. They have to improve at road games. They were 1-8 in road games the last 2 years while being nearly 500 at home. So if Luke Fickell can right the ship there. Another head coach like Loxley at Maryland that's very much on the hot seat and is getting that nationally no matter who you watch or listen to. They retain both coordinators, so that potentially could hold back this team if they don't, change anything schematically within. I think the defense has a chance to be solid, potentially. I mean, they bring in a couple of portal players. Mason Posa is a all Big Ten, honorable mention. Cooper Catalano, Matthew Jung, Marvin Burks is a transfer in at safety. So there's a couple of players defensively that stick out when you look at this Wisconsin defense, but it all falls on the offensive line for me in this Colton Joseph. Goodness, if he can pan out, Abu Sama, running back coming in from Iowa State, I think is a solid addition. It's all on Colton Joseph's shoulders, in my opinion, though. If he replicates what he was doing at Old Dominion last year, if he can elevate that play to the Big Ten, I think this Wisconsin team could potentially fight for a bowl game. But I don't see that happening. I don't see Luke Fickell retaining his job, unfortunately. I still think he's a good head coach, but they didn't invest early enough in this program to give him the necessary resources, the NIL funding, stuff like that. So Wisconsin, I've going 4-8, 2-7 in 2026.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I'm a little bit higher Let's see here. I have Wisconsin 12th at 5-7 and 3-6 for a lot of the same reasons you pointed out, Reed. I really like Colton Joseph. To me, the offense doesn't need to necessarily become good. I think this defense was fine enough last year to where if they are at least as good as they were defensively last year and then become not awful on offense, which I think they very well can be, like you said, with Colton Joseph, who I have concerns about as a passer. I mean, I would be okay with him throwing under 250 attempts on the season and running the ball if he's going to get a 6.5 yards per carry like he did at Ole Miss, Jesus, Old
Wow.
Dominion, and then Abu and then Abu Sama like you talked about at running back. I think if this offense is maybe even below average in the defense as good like it was last year, they could sneak up towards 6, 7, 8. You can't avoid the sequence of those numbers. It's impossible. But I think that this team could be good because defensively, let's take a look here. I had their schedule from last season pulled up. They had a very, very rough start to the season.
Yeah.
Started off the year 2-6, 2-6, and then didn't particularly end the season super well. But if you look at these games, they held Oregon on the road, 6th ranked Oregon to 21 points, Washington to 10 points, and actually beat Washington. Indiana, obviously, Indiana is Indiana.
Caveat that Oregon game, it was an absolute slog
that is
fest. The
true.
under was a lock that day.
That is fair, but also Illinois at home held them to 10 points. Minnesota on the road held them to 17. The offense just couldn't get it done, but those are absolutely winnable scores to games. If Wisconsin had a below average offense, they could have been in that game that you're talking about in Oregon. Just because of how much of a wash it is because of the weather. They could have been in these games, Minnesota, Washington, which I mean they beat Washington, so they were in that game. It's just to me, if they can be serviceable. Colton Joseph to me is a great weapon in that regard because you don't need him to be a super efficient passer. He wasn't last year, so I don't think that's why they got him. They need to get back to those Wisconsin roots. Is basically what I'm trying to say. Run the ball. You don't need a superstar passing game, which Luke Fickell, whatever, Desmond Ritter, awesome, but just be Wisconsin. I'm so tired of this team trying to be something it's not. It's so annoying.
What's the classic saying? Run the damn ball.
Absolutely. And I think they will. I think they started figuring that out towards the end of last year. Defensively, like I said, they were solid. So I definitely could see them finishing getting to a bowl game this year, but I have them at 12.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I've got them at 13 actually, but same record, 5-7, 3-6. I really like Colton Joseph. I think it's a perfect addition. Not to just say the same thing you guys are saying, but I think this was a huge pickup for them. I think offensively they need to take a huge step forward this year. If they want to keep their head coach and if he wants another season around, I think it's going to be tough for them. They're trying to add some guys defensively. They bring in Junior Poisner, who was an all-MAC defensive lineman. They do have Mason Poza and Catalan. I mean, their linebacker core is really good. Mason Poza, I think, is one of the best linebackers in the Big Ten, maybe the country, to be honest, just from a fundamental standpoint and being able to go make tackles, which is what they want him to be there for. They also have a guy coming off the edge named Sebastian Cheeks, which is just like a great name. So,
great name.
But they do lose. I mean, we mentioned their running backs. They do lose Dylan, I think it's Jones, to LSU. He had some injury last year. One thing that does give me some hope about them this season is they were just plagued with injuries from really early on in the year. So, is it a testament to them not having any depth or them being a bad team, or did they just kind of get screwed, early off in the season? And I think it's kind of the latter. I think they kind of got screwed. But so if everyone can remain healthy, I think this is going to be a better team this season. But time will tell, and I do have some concerns, on the defensive side of the ball for sure right now. So,
yeah, and that's a good point. You bring up the injury situation. That was something Fickell addressed at Big Ten Media Days, that they changed some of their offseason training to try to do more injury prevention stuff like that. So, Jake is aligned record wise around us, boys. He has Wisconsin going 5-7, 3-6, finishing in 14th place. But again, one last thing on Wisconsin. They're one of the Big Ten teams, aside from like Penn State, I actually have a soft spot for because of just solely what they've been historically. The great running backs coming out of there. just their offensive style that they've had historically. I'm a massive fan of, again, as Colton was pointing out, just run the damn ball, just go back to classic Wisconsin. And I want them to be a successful team near the top of the Big Ten once again.
Yeah, and we are close to tiptoeing out of the basement of this conference, and we are at 52 minutes of runtime, baby. Let's go. This is gonna be a PR for how long can we have can we go for a stream?
Well, it also doesn't help. We're talking about the largest conference in college football, so so we can try to speed this up here. UCLA, I have finishing in 13th, going 5-7, 3-6 in conference play. I love the Bob Chesney hire. I think it's just going to take a year. Going to say that straight up. A lot of the new hires this season, aside from a few, holistically across the country, I think just need a year to acclimate to their new school. And this is one of those instances because Bob Chesney has never coached on the West Coast. He's never coached anywhere west of the Rocky Mountains. So that is a massive question mark for me. The portal class is outstanding. I could go on forever on this portal class. It's one of the best portal classes in the entire country, in my estimation. They did a really good job at recruiting players into that program. I'm a huge fan of the staff, an underrated staff, in my opinion. Dean Kennedy coming in as offensive coordinator, Colin Hitchler, defensive coordinator, coming over with Bob Chesney. They retained Nico at quarterback, which I think he will holistically take a better step up because he is in a better situation program-wise. I mean, with the dumpster fire that happened there last year. Wayne Knight at running back is going to be fantastic. Nearly 1,400 yards for JMU last year. Receivers are going to be dynamic. Landon Ellis as the headliner coming over from JMU as well. So I think this UCLA team definitely has a ceiling of where I think Colton is going to project them higher up the standings because they definitely have that ceiling. I mean, holistically, roster is going to be great. Coaching staff is going to be really good. There's some schedule dynamics I think that don't work well. Like week 4, they have to go on the road to Maryland, come back for a bye week, and then go up to Eugene to play Oregon. That's not good. They have to play Cal out of conference, who Colton obviously is really high on. They play 3 straight home games in the middle of the season: Wisconsin, Michigan State, Nevada. I think they have to win all 3 of those to be able to have a chance of going bowling. So this UCLA team, I definitely could expect out projecting my estimation of them, but I'm going to put them in 13th for now.
Yeah, I like UCLA. I'm a little bit higher on them. I've got them in 11. I think that they do go bowling this year. I think they win 7 games, 4 in conference, go 7-5, 4-5. I think they beat Cal first week for sure. That's a guaranteed win. No doubt about it. They're going to go and they're going to be the best team in California this year, I think. So maybe not USC.
I was going to say this dude is tripped. This dude got some of what PED management's on.
I do have USC higher, so I'll slow down there. But no, I think I love Bob Chesney. I think he's a fantastic coach. I'll keep it short and sweet too. Obviously, got Nico back, great quarterback. Kind of a head case outside the game, but man, he can perform when he's got a good offensive coordinator, coaching him. They're doing their best defensively to bring in some guys. They kind of just reloaded. They do bring in some good P4 guys. Sammy Omosigo from Oklahoma was a dog. Anthony Saka from Notre Dame. And obviously brought some more guys from JMU with them. Their interior on the defensive line is going to be a little bit of a struggle. I'm a little worried about that, but I feel like offensively they're gonna put up some numbers with Nico at the helm, and I expect this is just an upgraded UCLA team from last year, in my opinion. And so I'm not thinking they're going to take the conference by storm, but I think they're a good, a little bit over middle of the pack team. So
yeah, and my opinion on UCLA is going to be a little bit of hodgepodge from what you guys have said. I have them going 7-5. I have in Bob Chesney's first year as a Big Ten head coach, they're going to go above 500 in conference at 5-4. Partially because I think the schedule is really favorable. Obviously, like we talked about, Cal opening up in week 1, I have that as a loss, but then 2 straight home games. Their hardest games of the season are going to be Cal on the road. It's going to be Oregon on the road. It's going to be
Michigan.
and then USC at home, which, funnily enough, you talk about the best teams in California. I have UCLA pulling off that upset at home, believe it or not. But even if they don't, that would put them at 6-6, 4-5, which is not far from what AT had. I think this team is very strong offensively. Defense is going to be the biggest question, obviously, like we've said so many times already about this team. But James Madison was one of the most efficient running teams in the country last year. Wayne Knight, like you talked about, not only as a runner, but as a pass catcher out of the backfield, was absolutely phenomenal. Nearly over 6.5 yards per carry. Almost at 7. It's a little bit disingenuous, but over 6.5 yards per carry and 9 touchdowns, an extra touchdown receiving the ball. The offensive line was pretty solid when it came to the ground game. UCLA in its own right last year wasn't bad at running the ball. Nico Iamaleava is a big factor in why they were so good at running the ball, over 4.5 yards per carry at quarterback. Not much more you can ask for from the quarterback position from a guy who's like 115 pounds. But UCLA, I think, with Bob Chesney, we talk about him never coaching in the West. I think that matters more for recruiting. I'm not super worried about him from a coaching philosophy standpoint. Especially because I think his offense is very good for what will work in the Big Ten. So I'm super high on this team. Obviously, super high. 7-5 isn't world beaters, but I definitely like this team a lot. I think they'll be one of the better rushing units, at least one of the more. I won't say one of the best, one of the more underrated rushing units in all of the Big Ten this season.
Where's that finish?
Let's see. I have them at 9, so inside the top 10.
There you go. Congrats, Bob Chesney. That's a great first year.
It is. I'm super high. If you cannot tell by my schizophrenic ramble how much I love these people.
Unfortunately for you, Colton, you're not standings wise, you're level on this, but record wise, Jake has you beat. He has UCLA going 8-4, 5-4.
Jake. Okay, Jake. Me and Jake usually
conference
disagree a lot, so that's awesome.
Yeah, 8-4, 5-4. So that would also mean that Jake hasn't beaten Cal at a conference by that record. So
I mean, it's
I was just saying that about Cal. Just to.
I think I'm going to say this straight up. I think that is potential to be the best game in week 1.
Dude.
I really think it does.
Dude,
you open up with an in-state game. Come on, in-state.
Oh my gosh,
love it.
Classic Pac-12 matchup, 10 p.m. kick.
Okay. Let's go.
Beautiful.
Let's go.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
We could go forever. We could go forever on that. Okay, 12th place. I'm going to have the Nebraska Cornhuskers going. What is that? 6-6, 3-6 in conference play. They start the season, 6-0. I think they're, hold on, I need their schedule. Yeah, Ohio, Bowling Green, North Dakota, Michigan State, Maryland. They start 5-0, and then it completely down spirals from there. Indiana's a loss, at Oregon's a loss. Bye week. Washington is a close loss. Illinois on the road is a loss. Rutgers is a win. Ohio State is a loss, and on the road at Iowa is a loss. So again, kind of similar to last year, they start the season really hot, undefeated. Everyone could potentially be really high on them. Then they host Indiana and potentially lose by 2 or more touchdowns. So the Anthony Calandria show, I kind of just want Colton to talk about Nebraska holistically because, I mean, he is a Nebraska fan. So yeah. I will leave this to Colton, honestly.
Yeah, I'll go super quick just to let Colton as the Nebraska expert here.
I know. Hold on. I know what he's getting. That's why I turned his camera
off. He's got to go get some Nebraska merch. That's fine. That's fair.
Yeah.
I've got him going 7-5, 4-5, ranked at number 12 for me. So same rank, a little bit different record. A lot of the same stuff, that all the teams that you want at home, you get them, the big boys, but that means you got to go on the road to some teams that are going to be really hungry to beat you, and that's tough. And in any conference, especially the Big Ten, the SEC, going on the road at Illinois, at Rutgers back to back that's tough. Anthony Calandria comes in, he's good quarterback. I don't know if he can do it all. I think it's going to be another uphill battle for Rule this season, and we might be putting him on the hot seat if he doesn't go bowling at least. So,
yeah. And I mean, I've brought it up before. I think Nebraska's year is next year. I think the schedule is just way too hard. I mean, their recruiting class for next year is really, really good right now. So unless that somehow implodes on itself, um, I mean, I don't know. I think the end of last year and what Rule had going on around him, especially with the Penn State job opening, I mean, there's kind of some off the field distractions like that. I think this team was just kind of, wanting to get to the end of the season, if I want to put it lightly. So I think they were just done with the season, especially with kind of the tough loss that they had. Like that USC game at home, that was a really tough loss. So I think this Nebraska team has a chance to go bowling again, but that back half of the schedule is really tough. Mr. Cornhusker, what do you have to say?
I'm going to start by saying I do also have Nebraska at 7-5, 4-5. So I'm not Will Comptoning this by saying they're a playoff team, because they're not. I didn't say that last year either, when it seemed like the whole world was in a Husker frenzy. But this team is going to be the best team Matt Rule has had at Nebraska. Anthony, they're going to have a clear identity on offense, whereas before it was just the Dylan Raiola show. Get him weapons on the perimeter, get him a solid weapons at running back. The offensive line wasn't there, which was the ultimate downfall for that offense. And then obviously the Dylan Raiola injury is what kept them back from potentially 8 or 9 wins last year. I think that was completely, absolutely on the table last year, despite that defense being horrendous, which I'll get to in a second. Last year's Nebraska team wasn't nearly as bad as the last 3 or 4 games of the schedule read it as. It was just they had clear weaknesses that were clear mismatches against Penn State and Iowa. They also lose their franchise millions of dollar quarterback who was, the entire offense last season. That being said, defensively, they couldn't stop a nosebleed, like I think we've said 14 or 15 times about Nebraska last year and throughout this offseason. This year, they bring in Rob Orich, who is one of the best coordinators in general in all of the group of 6 last year from San Diego State. Almost said San Jose. San Diego State. And from an underrated standpoint, they also bring in their edge coach in Roy Manning from San Diego State, who has been absolutely phenomenal. If you've never heard of Trey White, he's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft next season. Bookmark that. That is absolutely
at Texas Tech now, by the way.
Also. Yeah, that's 100% happening. And if you look on Nebraska's roster, they were not special rushing the passer last year, but they do have talent. Williams Nwaneri stands out as a former 5-star edge rusher who has gone untapped so far last year, just 5 tackles for loss and 3 sacks, 42% of snaps as an edge rusher last year. I fully project him to be somewhat unlocked. I would be surprised if he didn't finish closer to 10 sacks this year. Defensively, they're going to be better. They don't necessarily get that much better on the defensive front in terms of production, but they definitely get bigger, which was one of their biggest issues. Is they were a tiny, underdeveloped. The scheme was bad too. It was 3-3-5, so you have 3 small, inexperienced down linemen trying to stop Penn State, trying to stop Iowa. It's just not ideal. So I definitely think they will be much improved on defense, which will ultimately skyrocket them into the best season, I think, overall in the Matt Rule tenure, which unfortunately is 7-5, praying for an 8th win because that schedule is so tough in the regular season.
10th or 11th?
I have them at 10th.
Thank you. Just hearing him get up to take his hat off is hilarious.
Freaking mic moving.
Oh my God. Thank you, Mr. Nebraska. Thank you for showing up once again. It's a pleasure always having you back. Jake has them also in 12th, like me, going 6-6, 3-6 in conference play. Colton, your 13th spot is open. Who do you have filling that in 2026?
This is where I'm going to have the Minnesota Golden Gophers, which might come as a surprise because I think Minnesota is actually a very strong team in this conference. If I'm going to be badly wrong about any of these teams, I would not be surprised if Minnesota is the team I'm just way off, because they do have what so many teams in this conference envy, which is a pure game wrecker on the defensive line in Anthony Smith. They also have TJ Bush Jr., who is very good on the opposite edge. I think their defense is going to be strong. That they return Darius Taylor, who was injured for a lot of last season. Drake Lindsey, I think, is an underrated quarterback in this conference. I don't think he's particularly strong either, as a playmaker or as a passer, but I do think there is plenty of upside with his arm. I think his deep ball specifically is a bit undervalued in this conference. I'm relatively high on this team, but then again, the schedule is also really difficult. I have them, like I said, 13th, and where is it? I believe it's 5-7, no, 6-6. I have them at 6-6, 3-6 in conference at number 13. And the only reason they're 13 is because on the road I have them losing in that Paul Bunyan Axe game against Wisconsin.
I agree with all the points you said about Minnesota. A little higher on them. I have 7-5 overall, 4-5 in conference play. I've said this before, and I said this in my Big Ten preview on my channel, that I think PJ Fleck is just reaching a ceiling. I think he's topping off. That doesn't sound right. I think he's capping out at what his potential is at Minnesota. Again, they have great players around that program. Darius Taylor, Anthony Smith is one of the best edge rushers in the country. Drake Lindsey, I agree, Colton, is probably one of the more undervalued quarterbacks in the Big Ten. I personally wouldn't have him in the top 10, but definitely has a ceiling of being a top 6 quarterback. I mean, even some people were projecting him as a potential first round pick when he does come out. I don't know about that, but he might have that upside. I just got to see another year of it. Receivers, I kind of have some questions about. Not a ton of, solid, true production out of the receiver group around him. Andrew Marshall is a good transfer addition, 60 tackles, 4 for loss. Kerry Brown, John Nestor. So the defense is going to be solid. It's just my question's kind of why. On that offensive side of the ball, I don't know if the weapons are going to be good enough to really be an upper tier team in this conference next year. And especially they have to improve on the road. They were 7-0 at home last year and lost every single road game that they played in 2025. So if they can at least flip the script on the road, I think they have a chance to be a near top half team in this conference. But I think they just missed out on that. I have them going 7-5, 4-5, right in the middle of the pack.
You obviously meant to say 6-6, 4-5. That's got to be what you meant, because they're definitely losing to Mississippi State week 2, and they're not conference. That's what I've got them. I've got them 6-6, 4-5. I think it's the same thing. Literally just beating a dead horse here. Drake Lindsey, great quarterback. Think he's really good, really underrated. Anthony Smith, one of the best edge rushers in the country. But yeah, I agree with everything you said, Reed. I think Fleck has kind of reached his potential, and I think he's been there for a while now. So not really expecting more than, good team, average team, gonna go to a bowl game, gonna put out some good guys, have an NFL guy or two come through. Good. You can watch good football in Minnesota, but we're not expecting much more than that. So
yeah, don't know how much more rowing the boat is going to be going on there.
Ski you ma, Reed.
Ski you ma, but ski you go away.
Good one. That was clever.
I like it.
Colin, again, you have a empty spot in your rankings, number 11.
This is actually where I'm gonna have Illinois. A lot of that offense and a lot of reason why that team offensively wasn't a train wreck last year was because of Luke Altmaier. He was not hyper efficient. I want to say that it's a bit overboard, but he was a very, very efficient passer. Didn't really make a ton of poor decisions passing the ball. Running the ball, they were not phenomenal by any stretch of the imagination. This is also a year in which I believe they're going to be towards the bottom of this conference in returning production. And Illinois is a team, like we talked about with Minnesota, they're just kind of reaching a ceiling, in my opinion, with Brett Bielema. I trust Brett Bielema to pull out a game, that's coming down to the wire. I would trust him probably if that game in Champaign with Nebraska is down to the final 2 minutes of the game. I would definitely put money on Bielema to win that game over Matt Rule. But from a roster perspective, I think this is one of the most underwhelming that Bielema has had. Defensively, they should be okay. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan really anywhere on this team. Like I said, running the ball definitely left a lot to be desired last season. So if they can't establish that, and Caton Hauser, who's going to be their big transfer, doesn't come in and wow, I definitely think they take a step back. And in saying that, I still have them going 7-5, 4-5 in conference, but finishing 11th.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not far off from you. I've got them at 9 though. So just a couple spots ahead, but I've still got them going 8-4, 5-4. I agree with a lot of what you said. I think Luke was a clutch for him. Last year I think he had 7 game-winning drives or something like that. Obviously the memorable one is when they beat Tennessee in the Music City Bowl, and he kind of came down and ended his career in the right way. I think he was great for him. I think he fit the system really well. It's tough. They lose him. I think defensively they're going to be okay. They lose their starting middle linebacker, but they still got this 4-star Grant Bierman. They've got James Kreutz, who's back, who was a stud for them. And then they also went out and got the number 1 JUCO linebacker, inside linebacker, and Ismail Conte. So I think defensively they're going to be okay. I really do like Katin Hauser or Katin Hauser. I don't really know how to say his name, but I think he's a dog and put up some really good numbers last year. I think he's going to transition into the Bielema, this Illinois offensive system really well, but still some question marks. I think they're kind of a middle of the pack team. I'm comfortable at 5 wins in the conference, but I'm not yet again not thinking they're going to go dominate and make a run for a title or anything.
So as you can see, I have 8th highlighted here. I have Illinois going 9-3, 6-3 in conference play. I am a huge fan of this Bobby Hauck hiring a defensive coordinator. Was the head coach at Montana for the last 7 years. And Montana is perennially good.
Perennially.
Thank you.
Nice.
At the top of the FCS ranks, and they have a really good defense to go along with that. So I'm a huge fan of that hire. They're going to play a 3-3-5. So I think holistically that defense is going to better fit that system for the pieces that they have. Daniel Brown is a name to keep an eye out for at linebacker. Had a really good spring practice from reports. Rising senior. So I would keep an eye out on him. Running back room is going to be pretty solid. Khalil Valentine, Caden Fagan, Aiden Lafferty all return to the running back room. Alex Perry is a transfer receiver coming in, nearly 900 yards receiving, 9 touchdowns, 15 yards per reception. Hudson Clement is back at receiver. Jayshon Platt is another transfer receiver coming in. So I think the offense is going to be really solid. The defense, I think, will be good systematically under Bobby Hauck. It's just what names kind of fall out through the grapevine and fall practice and stuff like that really take a step forward and be the headline names for this Illinois defense. But I think Brett Bielema holistically has always outperformed what he's had on his roster because of what the coaching job he's done and the staff that he's produced out of Illinois so far. And I am not going to go against him to be a below average team in Big 10 play again. So I project Illinois to go 9-3, 6-3 in conference play. And Jake, once again, has the same exact thing as me. Illinois 9-3, 6-3, also finishing in 8th place. Jake has his 10th spot open. This is where he has the Iowa Hawkeyes going their classic 8-4, 5-4 in conference play. I also have Iowa in this similar spot. I have Iowa actually finishing in 7th. I have Iowa also going 9-3, 6-3 in conference play. They get a bonus win. This was a team last year that I forget their record in 1-score games, but it was pretty close. Like they had Indiana in a 1-score game. They had Oregon in a 1-score game. They had Penn State in a 1-score game. What else is here? They blew out Minnesota. USC on the road was a 1-score game. So a ton.
They lost an Iowa State game, and it was
at Iowa State, another 1-score game. So if they flip all those 1-score games, they're a playoff team last year. And they were really competitive against playoff teams that ended up making deep runs. Indiana, national champion, Oregon, semifinalists. So this Iowa team, they are going to be ranked in the AP poll coming in the year 22nd. Phil Parker, one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. Tim Lester, really efficient running the ball. They will always be good running the ball as long as Kirk Ferentz is the head coach there. LJ Phillips is a good transfer running back coming in. Sorry, I'm pulling up exactly where he came from, but they also returned Kamari Moulton, who's going to be a really good running back again this season. Nearly 900 yards rushing last year. South Dakota, LJ Phillips came in from. The quarterback is once again the biggest question surrounding Iowa. Hank Brown, Jeremy Eklinski, whichever one ends up being the starter, just has to be mildly efficient, don't turn over the ball a ton, and Iowa will be a rock solid team once again. 9-3, 6-3 is my projection.
Yeah, I've got them at number 8, 9-3, 6-3. Same sentiment. Yet again, just really feel the same way about them as you do. I think they're going to be a good team, like they always are. We know they're going to have a really solid defense. We know they're going to have one of the best offensive lines in the country, and they'll probably have some guy at tight end that ends up playing professional football somewhere. So on
the defensive line, every time.
Exactly right. I will say Trevor Locke, Cade Piper, obviously absolute studs. I think they're all conference offensive linemen. Two of the best in the country. They would start at any team, and that's kind of typical of Iowa there. Just concerns about the quarterback. We don't know. We think Hecklinski is the guy. I think he could be good, has a good ceiling, but time will tell. 9-3, 6-3. I think this is going to be a good Iowa team. I don't expect them to win the conference, but I expect them to compete with the best in the conference. So,
to me, this Iowa team reads closer to what it did in 2024 than it does what it did in 2025. You lose Mark Gronowski, who wasn't, by any stretch of the imagination, a elite quarterback, but he did give you a dynamic threat outside of the running backs in the running game that I think benefited that offense immensely. Like you said, 800 one-score losses that they could have flipped. And I remember betting Iowa and all of those and losing. So no tears shed on my end for Iowa. And
who would ever bet against Indiana?
I didn't. I was talking about USC. I remember I had that as one of my best bets.
Oregon
Iowa money line. Oregon. I was like, this is going to be the week. They do it. Almost said it. Whatever. But I did have Indiana. I did not doubt Indiana at all. To me, they lose Mark Gronowski, and something we haven't talked about, they lose their special teams coordinator, their longtime special teams coordinator, which obviously I'm not going to go out here and say that I was going to regress massively in special teams. I think so long as Kirk Ferentz is there, they will have at least a very, very good to great special teams unit. So I'm not saying that they will take a massive step back in that department, but it is something of note in case, maybe they do take a step back. That could play a huge role in this team who has always almost built more through their special teams than their offense. But to me, defense is going to be there. Quarterback is a giant red flag, not even a question mark. Just Jeremy Hecklinski is the projected starter. Hank Brown, I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. They'll probably see 3 or 4 guys get playing time throughout the season. Like I said, it reads more from closer to 2024 where they won 8 games. I have them going 8-4, 5-4 in conference, which does make me a little nervous because they haven't won less than 6 games in conference in the past 3 seasons. But their schedule is a little bit tougher than some of those seasons. I have them finishing 8th at 8-4 and 5-4.
8th at 8-4, 5-4. Okay. This is probably my biggest shock of the entire ranking reveal. The Michigan Wolverines for me come in 9th place, 8-4. Yeah, 8-4, 6-3 in conference play. Right off the top, they're going to be a better product on field. Without a shadow of a doubt, they're going to be more competitive. They're going to have a better system offensively and defensively. Coaching staff holistically, major upgrade. Whittingham at the helm now. They bring in Jay Hill defensively, great defensive coordinator from BYU. Jason Beck follows Whittingham from Utah, great offensive coordinator by way of New Mexico. So, again, the staff and their play on the field is going to take a massive step forward now that they have a real head coach leading this team. The only question I really have is Bryce Underwood. I got to see it to believe it for him to take the step forward finally, and for him to really show what he was in high school. That's honestly the thing that is holding me back on Michigan. And the schedule is tougher than it was last year. Oklahoma in week 2, I have that as a loss. Iowa, sneaky trap game potentially in week 4. I mean, Iowa plays everyone competitively, just like we talked about. Indiana at home, Oregon on the road, and Ohio State on the road in their final 3 games with a sneaky potential trap game, some people are saying, with UCLA the week before the game. So this Michigan team, again, is going to be better on field. I just got to see it to believe with Bryce Underwood to really elevate them up the standings. They're going to be able to run the ball really effectively. Jordan Marshall, Savion Hyder, good 1-2 punch there, running back. Andrew Marsh is a potential top 10 receiver in this conference. John Henry Daly is one of the best edge rushers in the country coming from Utah. Smith Snowden, one of the best defensive backs, also coming from Utah. They returned Zeke Berry. So there are pieces for this Michigan team to compete near the top of this conference once again. I know one of us here has them very high up in the standings, and they definitely have that potential. Again, Bryce Underwood's my only question mark here. So 8-4, 6-3 for the Wolverines.
You can go ahead and copy that exact same record and just put it at number 7 for me. I'm right there with you. I think John Henry Daly, all conference guy for me. I think he's one of the best defensive linemen. I think the hire was great, especially with the timing of it. I think that they literally hit a home run getting Whittingham when they did. A lot of good things to say about Michigan. Don't know what to think about Bryce Underwood. He's got to take a step up for me. The only reason I've got them sitting above Iowa is because I think they actually beat Iowa, even though their overall record's worse here. I think they take that Iowa game. But I think they lose to Ohio State or Oregon. Indiana, Ohio State, and then what was the other team?
Oklahoma.
Yeah, Oklahoma. They definitely lose. Oregon. It was Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana, the 3 in-conference games. I got them losing, and then they're going to lose to Oklahoma out of conference. So yeah, that was it. So I pulled up the wrong schedule, but yeah. Anyways, that's kind of what I've got for him. Bryce Underwood just got to take a massive step up. If he does, then this could be different, but honestly, I still think that they got some other struggles, especially with Whittingham being there for the first time. So
Michigan's going to be able to run the football. I think just from that alone, they'll be one of the better units in all of the Big Ten. They bring back Jordan Marshall, who I think could honestly finish as an All-American running back this year if all goes well. They have one of the better offensive lines. They're going to be one of the more talented teams overall in the conference. So I don't think from an offensive perspective outside of Bryce Underwood, which I'll get to him in a second, so I'm prefacing all this. Offensively, Michigan will be good with Jason Beck, and I have no question about that. Even if Devin Dampier or Bryce Underwood, sorry, I'm spoiling my plot points here. Defensively, Jay Hill is a top 10 defensive coordinator in the sport, in my opinion, and now he has all the talent in the world at his disposal to work with. I am super excited about this defense as a whole, just because it's been good for years and years and years. To me, bringing John Henry Daly with Cal Whittingham to Michigan, they instantly have a game record, which is highly sought after in this conference. Usually teams that have these types of players tend to overperform because, if John Henry Daly has a game where he has 4 sacks, 3 sacks, they could flip a script and, blow out a team in Indiana who, if they force a couple of turnovers, everything flips upside down, and Michigan is somehow, miraculously knocking off the former national championship from last season. With all of that said, obviously that brings us to Bryce Underwood. I think he has a great system at his disposal now, bringing in Jason Beck and at offensive coordinator and that offensive scheme that Jason Beck formerly brought with him to Utah from New Mexico, where he also brought Devin Dampier. I think Devin Dampier is the perfect mold to what you should be expecting to see from Bryce Underwood, because in his first year in the Jason Beck system at New Mexico, 2,700 yards, sub 60% completion percentage, 12 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. In his second full season as a starter at Utah, 64% passing, nearly 2,500 total yards, 24 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. That is coaching. That is scheme. That is putting your quarterbacks in a position to not have to be superstars, which I mean, Bryce Underwood might still think of himself as. I think he can be very good, but I don't think he will be a Heisman winner at any point in his career. I do think he will have a significantly better season this year. He was a 60% completion percentage guy, 2,400 yards, 11 touchdowns. Obviously, the touchdown to interception ratio wasn't good, but he's a great athlete. I think he reads almost identical to Devin Dampier going from New Mexico to Utah. I don't think he will be quite what Devin Dampier was last year, but he will be closer to that, I believe. Probably closer to 20 touchdowns and sub 10 interceptions this year, just passing the ball and then running the ball. He should be at least a little bit more efficient in that department. And I have, with all that being said, wholly as an entire unit, I think Michigan is one of the best teams in this conference. I have them at 4th. I have them 10-2, 7-2 in conference.
Well, lucky for you, Colton, Jake is exactly aligned with you. 4th place, 10-2, 7-2. But not. Did you want to add this to signify they're in your playoff?
Sure, yeah.
Because they are? Yeah. Okay. Jake does not have them making the playoff at 10-2, 7-2.
I think at 10-2 they have to, because they have to have a win over Indiana, Oregon, or Ohio State. I don't think.
I would agree with that. Yeah. But Jake did not tell me that. So if he does have them in, he did not tell me that. So
let me gander. Has he put his out yet? Continue. I'm just going to take a quick.
He is not.
Okay.
Fun fact. Your 7th position, Colton.
7. Okay, I'm gonna make this one a lot shorter because I just rambled for like 10.5 minutes. 7, I have Washington. To me, Washington is a perfectly good team. I think they're capable of reaching up towards 10 wins this year. I obviously don't predict that. They're going to be good defensively. They're going to be good offensively. They have one of the most dynamic playmakers in this conference in Damon Williams Jr. I like Jed Fish. He's been one of the more consistent coaches since joining. I mean, I say that it's been 2 years, but in his first season, he had a lot to handle in his first year at Washington, and it kept them afloat last year. Took a decent step up. I wouldn't be surprised if they take another step up, but for now, with the whole fiasco, I don't know if we're going to get into it with Damon Williams Jr. I will stick with them at 8-4, and if they completely suck or if they are way better than that, I'm okay with being proven wrong.
It's part of it. Part of the predictions.
And I have them similarly to another team that we're going to predict later, in that they lose their biggest games at USC, at home versus Penn State, at home versus Indiana, and at Oregon. So significantly better than the bottom teams, but not quite above some of the higher teams in this conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. I've got them just one spot ahead. It's 6. Yep, at 9-3, 6-3. I think this is a good team. Damon Williams, obviously fantastic quarterback. Is the off-field stuff that happened going to affect his play? And is it going to affect the team buy-in with him? Are the guys going to want to listen to somebody that tried to leave them? I feel like if you can get past all that, then they're offensively they're going to be fine, and he's gonna do exactly what he can do, which is be a fantastic quarterback. Defensively, I think they're going to be good. They returned Jacob Lane at edge. They've got Isaiah Ward and Russell Davis, who are 2 former starters that are going to be coming back, which is huge. Linebacker room is just loaded. They've got Jacob Manu, who's honestly probably going to be an all Big Ten guy. Ziri Alexandra. He had 70 tackles last year. I mean, they're loaded at the linebacker spot. So I have no concern there. And I think, like I said about Damon, I think he's a great quarterback. Just hope the off the field stuff doesn't affect the gameplay. I think it's going to be a good year for him, but I do have him losing to Indiana, Oregon, and USC, because I think that's kind of your upper echelon in the conference. So,
yeah, ditto to every single point we've talked about. I think this Washington team, I'm going to align with basically everyone that's talking about Washington right now. They definitely have the sneaky potential of being a college football playoff contender. I don't think they win the conference. I don't think anyone's projecting them to win the conference outside of Washington fans, but they definitely have potential to be an at-large team. I will say that. And if they can perform, with some of the spots we talked about at USC, Iowa at home, Penn State at home, Indiana at home, and Oregon on the road, those last 2 games are crucial for this Washington team if they're going to be an upper echelon team in this conference next season. Ryan Walters, we didn't point him out, one of the best defensive play callers in the entire country. I think he is a bona fide top 10 coordinator on the defensive side coming into this season. So Washington, I think, is right back up here near the top of the conference, just missing out on the Big Ten championship game by a few spots here, but 9-3 6-3 for the Huskies, and that is where Jake also has Washington, but in 7th place, 9-3, 6-3. Jake in 6th place has the USC Trojans going 9-3, 6-3 in conference play. That is where I will also have USC right here in 5th, not Washington. Goodness gracious. USC 9-3, 6-3 in conference play. I think USC, they're tough. They're tough to project in my mind because on paper they're going to be really, really good, and the staff is really good. Everyone is super high on Gary Patterson coming in as defensive coordinator. Lincoln Riley is one of the best offensive minds in the sport. He has a year 3 quarterback, which year 3 quarterbacks typically take that jump. I mean, you look at the biggest jump, like Heisman winner jumps. Year 3 quarterbacks tend to do that. With Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams was the last one to do that. So all of that being said, I think this USC team just slips up in a few spots, namely on the road at Penn State, on the road at Indiana, at Ohio State at home. I mean, some of their bigger games, I mean, Oregon, actually, no, I have them winning the Ohio State game, excuse me. They lose to Oregon, they lose on the road at Penn State, and lose on the road at Indiana. So, again, having them projected top 15 in the AP, I think is a good spot for them right now, just on the fringe of that. They definitely have the ceiling of being within a top 10 spot, I think, by midseason. But I kind of got to see it to believe with the defense, just solely because Gary Patterson's been out of football for a little bit, hasn't been around the sport. But I mean, again, tons of pieces on both sides of the ball to be able to compete. I'm honestly the biggest fan of that running back group. King Miller, Waymon Jordan, I think are going to be one of the best groups in this conference. So USC for me finishes in 5th at 9-3, 6-3.
Yeah, you can just yet again copy paste that. Go ahead and throw it at the same spot. I'm 9-3, 6-3 on USC. Everything you said, I do think this is Jaden Miava's year to take the step forward. It sounds like from what we're hearing in the camp, that's what's been going on. Lincoln Riley has done this with a couple quarterbacks before. So, Jaden fits his system. I feel like he's going to be a better quarterback this year than he was last year. If this team does make a playoff run, if this team does make a Big Ten run, I'm not surprised at that. I'm just not really seeing it happen. They added, some really good guys out of high school. That their high school recruiting class was insane. But does that translate in today's game in week 1? And that's the question. They got a lot of new, fresh faces, a lot of talent around the team, though. I know they add 5-star Luke Waffle. On the defensive side, a lot of other guys as well. It's really just going to come down to Jaden Miava. I agree with what you said about the running back room too. I think he's going to take a step up, but I still see in this team just outside that upper echelon. I think they're close, but they're just not there yet. So that's why I got them at number 5.
To me, USC is a lot stronger because of that offense, because of how stout they were on the offensive line, because of the running game, how good they were last year, how efficient they were last year. Obviously, they lose their top 2 wide receivers from last season, but they have plenty of talent to replace those guys with. I don't think they'll necessarily be hurting in that department. It's just going to be the defense, which definitely took a huge step forward with D'Anton Lynn. Can it take another step forward now that D'Anton Lynn is at Penn State and they bring in Gary Patterson? I think it's possible. I'm going to probably just play it safe and say they'll be probably as good as they were last year. I also have them 9-3. Let me take a gander. 9-3, 6-3. Yeah, 9-3, 6-3 at 5. I actually have this as one of the most unfortunate teams in all of the 2026 season because, and this is going to be a shocker to you guys probably, I have them starting 8-0, going into the Ohio State game at home, probably against either a 1-loss or an undefeated Ohio State. That's probably going to be game day. I have them beating Oregon at home, Washington at home, and then Penn State on that road in that 3-game stretch. And from that, they're probably a top 5 team. And then ending the year with a loss to Ohio State, a loss on the road to Indiana, and a loss in a shocker to their rival in Los Angeles against UCLA. So I do have this a tragic end to an otherwise great season. Could that be even worse for Lincoln Riley if they end the season that way? Maybe. Otherwise, this is a great season. I really like this team overall. I don't think they get worse defensively. I think offensively they could be better, like we said with Jaden Mayava coming into his third year, being one of the best quarterbacks in this conference last season. Yeah, it's a very strong team on paper. It's just a matter of exercising, like we say so many times, exercising those Lincoln Riley on the road demons that have seemed to plague him. I have him losing two of those 3 losses coming on the road late in the season, so could be a little bit brutal in that regard.
Yeah, and just real quickly on that point, if they do lose 3 of their last 4 games, do you think they pull the trigger?
I would be upset at them. I do think there's a world where they upgrade at head coach depending on how stuff shakes out in the rest of the, because USC is a huge brand. They're going to have enough money to poach somebody probably, if not from like one of the top dogs from one of the A tier teams. But I think it's a matter of time. Like there's going to be a season. I don't think USC yet is a team that like they're gonna be good on the recruiting trail. But I think they're a team that's going to need to kind of tough it out until they get there, because I can't imagine they will get that much better if Lincoln Riley, like the biggest question with him was defense, and they got so much better defensively last year. I think they're figuring it out. It's just, do you want to wait another year if that stuff shakes out? I could definitely see it happening where they pull the trigger and fire him if they think they can get somebody else, but I wouldn't necessarily say that's going to happen.
I agree there. I would be disappointed if they pulled the trigger after that, because I project USC next year is going to be their big jump,
especially with that high school class. I mean, you keep those guys around for 2-3 years. That's a team that could have 2 or 3 runs at it in the next couple seasons. So
and they got a guy named Booby. They got a guy named Booby on their team.
They do. That high school class, their ability to bring in portal additions, Gary Patterson year 2, I think. Just holistically, the defense could take a step forward. I mean, I'm talking about 2 years in the future. What am I doing? Colton, your 6th spot in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and this is unfortunately where I'm going to have Penn State. To me, in year 1 with Matt Campbell, I don't see them breaking through where James Franklin couldn't and becoming like one of the top teams in the conference. I mean, they were a top team in the conference some years with James Franklin. So I definitely think this is going to be a rebuild year. They obviously undergo a ton of roster overhaul. They bring in a ton of players from Iowa State. They bring in a new coaching staff, obviously. D'Anton Lynn, I think, is the strongest coach on that unit. I'm not particularly high on Matt Campbell, although I do love him from a roster building and what's the word? Culture building perspective. But to me, I'm not super high on them. I have them at 9-3 and 6-3. Let me see exactly what games I have here. To me, there's just a clear designation because of how easy quote unquote, how not as hard as some other teams the schedule is going to be. There's going to be a clear distinction between a team in Penn State and a team in USC. And I think USC is a bit better. They're a bit better in a number of areas, namely quarterback, probably at running back, maybe at offensive line. Defensively, we shall see. But I definitely think there are going to be better teams. I think this is where we separate between teams that are capable of winning the Big Ten in teams that I have below at Penn State, Washington, Iowa. I don't think those teams are quite going to be that great this year in order to maybe sneak into a conference title game if there's a bunch of tiebreakers, and a team in USC and above, which I definitely think will be capable of doing that given 1 or 2 extra games go their way, someone else loses, something like that.
Yeah. AT.
I've got Penn State going 10-2, 7-2, sitting at number 4 for me. Iowa State 2.0, really like Rocco Bex. I think they've done a lot of good on the defensive side, especially getting some linebackers in. Don't have much more to say about them though. Favorable schedule. I don't want to say easy, but very, very favorable schedule. I like Matt Campbell a lot. I think that was another good hire for him. But yet again, I'll be saying a lot of what Colton just said, and I don't want to step on the toes of the Penn State man himself. So I'll let you give us the full scoop here, Reed.
Sorry, sorry. You said 10-2, 7-2, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I got. 10-2,
Yeah.
7-2.
Okay, cool.
Think it'll be a good season. Not,
Cool.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I think USC is probably a better team, but they'll have better in
Definitely
conference.
Definitely agree. USC is a better team on paper. Definitely need to check Jake's playoff logic because he also has Penn State going 10-2, 7-2, missing the playoff like Michigan. So need to check him on that. I have Penn State 7-2 in conference play, 10-2 overall. I am going to add the asterisks because they are my last at-large team. I think they do sneak in the college football playoff. Again, not going to, you know, hammer home again everything you guys have talked about. And I've talked about Penn State at length on the show before. So love the transfer additions from Iowa State. I think the program and the system fits for this team going forward with Matt Campbell at the helm. Mauser following him from Iowa State, Danton Lynn from USC. I think this team is going to be miles better culturally, stylistically, whatever adjectives you want to use to describe this football team. I think they're going to be better holistically. And I will say my point again that they have a real football coach leading them now. I will say that because I think James Franklin is a good coach, a good recruiter, but he didn't really take the necessary steps forward as a football coach to elevate the Penn State team, and obviously led to everything that had happened last season. So this Penn State team, again, a lot of people think that they're just going to be schedule benefitees, however you want to say it. They're going to be great with the schedule alongside it in that team that they have. So I have the.
Sorry, I won't cut you off.
I was just going to say my final point. I have them beating USC, but losing to Michigan and Washington on the road.
Yeah, to me, this is a 3-game schedule. It's those 3 games. I don't think I won't project them to be better. I mean, they could be better, but then it's a road game on Washington. To me, it's just I don't think in year 1 they will be. I think they will be clearly better than the Wisconsins, the Northwesterns, the Purdue's, Minnesota, Rutgers, Maryland. But I think they'll be a step below. Like I said, a 10-win Penn State team would be an A caliber team. Probably not an S, but definitely higher than a B. To me, they're a B, which means they will win 9 games, the games they're supposed to. The games are going to be favored in most likely, and then drop the 3 biggest ones. That's how I foresee Penn State.
Fair.
And now we're all have a consensus top 3. Go figure.
Yeah. We will. Sorry, I was getting feedback from an audience member that said AT was chomping on his fingernails. So
I
had to mention that. Sorry. Okay. In our consensus final 3, gentlemen, in 3rd place, I've gone back and forth on this. My initial rankings I put out, I had this team making the conference championship game, and now based on recent events that had happened, I am changing that. I have Oregon going 11-1, 8-1 in conference play, but finishing in 3rd and missing out on the conference title due to tiebreakers, but they still make the college football playoff. What's there not to say about this Oregon team? Massive returning production on both sides of the ball. Dante Moore, one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best to some people's estimation in the entire country. Iverson Hooks at receiver is a great portal addition. Jeremiah McClain, Jamari Johnson at tight end, Decoria Moore, Evan Stewart, all on the offensive side. They add Coy Parrish at safety from Minnesota. They return their entire front 4. Like, what's not to love about this Oregon team? The only question mark I have personally, they have 2 new coordinators. So how does that elevate or lower the ceiling of this team going forward? But I think you can't deny that this team is going to be a playoff contender, a Big Ten contender, and that's exactly where I have them.
It's also where I'm going to have them. I have them at 10-2, 7-2, though, so dropping an extra game. And they're lucky at that because they don't have Indiana on their schedule, or else auto loss. Okay? They have had an Indiana issue. A lot of what you said they returned their front 4, and it could very well be the best defensive line in the sport. It's at least on paper, it from a raw production standpoint, It looks to be that way. If not literally, then they might have the numbers to look at least. This is going to be a strong team. I'm not super worried in any specific regard. It's just the offensive line might take a step back. I don't think they'll be bad necessarily, but the two biggest games are Ohio State on the road, and they have USC on the road, which I have the loss. Not a super difficult schedule. They also have Michigan and Washington at home. I think they'll be clearly better than those teams. But I do think that that added road element could end up playing a huge role in this team's season. 10 wins is nothing to sneeze at, but I think it might actually be a little bit of a letdown, seeing as how hyped this team is. A lot of people are saying this is the year where Oregon finally wins a national title. I'm not quite there. I do think they're strong on paper. I think they'll power rate very, very strong in the preseason, but they're a team that has had that the past 2 years and just has not been able to get it done. If they are able to miss Indiana completely this season, obviously they will in the regular season. In the postseason, if they're able to miss Indiana, I could see them potentially making a push, but I don't think for some reason, they've been an elite team the past few years. Indiana's just been the monkey that Dan Lanning can't get off his back. So. Uh-oh.
AT, you're on mute, or your mic is.
Yeah, sorry, I had hit my mic over here and it muted.
All good.
Same thing though, 10-2, 7-2. I think this is obviously loaded out. I'm sorry, 11-1, 8-1, same exact spot though. I think this is a loaded out Oregon roster. Kind of similar. Can Dan Lanning get over that hump and make a playoff run and actually get to the semifinal, final type? Can he make a national championship run? I think if he can do it, this is the roster to do it with. Loaded out defensively, loaded out offensively, all Americans all over the field for them. Nothing else to say than what you guys just said. They have all the tools. It's just if they can put it together. I got them in my top three because I do think the two teams above them are just better and have a better chance to go win a national championship and end this conference. So
definitely. And as you can see, I added Jake has the exact same spot, 10-2, 7-2 playoff participants. Okay, my runner up and also finishing in second place, I will have the Indiana Hoosiers. I'm typing the full thing out. That's crazy. 11-1, 8-1, playoff participant, and a conference runner up. Also, now that I officially put it out, national semifinalist, Indiana Hoosiers.
I'm going to have them coming in at first. I have them 11-1, 8-1 in conference, which obviously means I have them actually. Wait, hold on a second. Skip me. AT, go.
I've got them at 2, 11-1, 8-1, right behind Ohio State. I mean, what can you say about them? I think that Kurt Cignetti is the man. I think that they have another chance to go make a run in a national championship and win a Big Ten conference as well. But I do have them losing to who do I have them losing to? I'm kind of the same things you, Colton. Ohio State. Yeah, I got them losing to Ohio State. I think that they're going to have a good season though. And then on the flip side, obviously you guys know OSU is my number one. I've got OSU losing to Oregon. So I think these top three teams are just going to kind of flip each other. But I do still think Ohio State and Indiana are the top dogs in the conference. So.
Yeah, I was looking at the wrong thing. I have Indiana beating Ohio State, which is why I have them getting the first seed at home. I have them losing the next week, though, because the very next week they go to Ann Arbor to play the Michigan Wolverines, who, like I've talked about, are going to be very strong this year. It's going to be their 8th week of football played in a row, 7th? Yeah, 8th week of football played in a row going on the road in Ann Arbor after playing Ohio State. I think that's a bit of a letdown spot there. But after that, I don't have them losing another game, and it's because this is going to be one of the strongest teams schematically in practice. Obviously, from a roster talent perspective, they're not going to match up, but we saw last year it doesn't matter. On the field, they're going to be top 5 at the very, very least in the trenches on the offensive and defensive line. The secondary could take a step back. I don't really foresee that because of how well structured that Bryant Haynes defense is going to be. They lose a couple key pieces. It's the only reason I say that. And then they bring in Josh Hoover, who Fernando Mendoza comes in, wins the Heisman, but if you're asking the casual fan, they didn't know who Fernando Mendoza was before last season. I really think this Mike Shanahan offense does an elite job at maximizing quarterbacks, making the offense easier, making their decision-making process easier. And from that they see quarterbacks see massive efficiency spikes in the Mike Shanahan offense. I think this is the strongest team from a coaching perspective, just flat out. I think from a scheming and play calling perspective, there might be a couple better teams, but and I've gone over that in my college football playoff predictions. I do not have them winning the national championship, but I do think they are the strongest team, at least on the offensive and defensive lines, and I think that is by far the biggest strength of theirs, as opposed to an Ohio State, who's also going to be very strong. Obviously, that's the other team that we're going to talk about here. I think Indiana's wholly structurally way better, at least at this point, than Ohio State is probably, which might be a hot take. I don't know. It might be consensus. I like Ohio State too, obviously, but.
Well, Jake is aligned with you, Colton. He will have Indiana winning the Big Ten. He also has Indiana as his national champion. So he has them.
It's not crazy to say that.
No, not at all. He has Indiana doing the most historic thing ever in the history of college football again, going back to back after being one of the worst programs.
Which,
of all
since
time.
he's not here, I think that's funny because I remember arguing with him about why Indiana was better than Oregon this year, and he was like, "No," and then it switched. Sorry, Jake.
To finish this off, of course, Ohio State is the remaining team on all of our boards. 11-1, 8-1 for me. Their lone loss is on the road at USC. I just think it's a sneaky spot, having to travel cross country like that. Potentially the best roster in my estimation. I know on paper some people are going to differ on that opinion. I think Ohio State might have potentially the best roster on paper. They have obviously the best player in all of college football in Jeremiah Smith. Arthur Smith, I think, is going to elevate this offense a smidge, especially if they are more effective running the ball and then they're able to effectively play action off of that run game, which they were so effective at last year. Their play action game was really effective. Matt Patricia, another top 10 defensive coordinator in the sport, even though they lose a ton of that top end production to the NFL draft. Again, they are littered with talent. Kenyatta Jackson, I think, is a massive retainment on the defensive front to be able to lead that group up front. Losing Caleb Downs is obviously massive, but I think holistically that defense is going to be loaded once again. Especially in a NFL system. You saw what happened last year when a NFL system is translated in college, and they were the best defense in the country last year, or at least top 5 at a minimum. So I think Ohio State runs the table, especially with how their season ended last year, sour taste in their mouth from the Miami game. I have them running all the way to the national championship game, and that is my pick to win it all this year, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah, I don't even know what to add to that. They had 11 guys go pro last year. No big deal. No worries. We'll just add we'll just do it again this next season. And we're going to be talking about them again like this at the end of this upcoming season too. They're a powerhouse right now. They're putting out crazy talent, hiring really good coaches. They call their defensive coordinator the mad scientist, and he is that. He's just I really like Patricia over there. I think that, everything that they've got going for them is just, they're kind of upper echelon right now. Obviously, it's a lot harder to win national championships in this day and age because you got to go through so many teams in the playoff. But I think if you're talking about this Ohio State program 10 years ago, they're the ones that are going back and forth with Nick Saban, not Clemson and Dabo Swinney. So this is they're just a team. They're a really good team. They're producing talent at a level that nobody else really is right now. And that's all I got to say. Julian Say and Jeremiah Smith, they have how many guys that could potentially win the Heisman on their roster this year. They've got like 3 that could be in New York at the end of the year. So crazy talent, obviously got a good coaching staff. Not really much more to say. I think you'll be seeing them make a good run at a natty again this season. So 11-1, 8-1.
That was a great quote right there. They're just a team. Colton.
to me, Ohio State's going to read more as a traditional Big Ten offense this year than what they have the past few seasons under. For some reason, I always forget his name. Help me out.
Who?
Offense coordinator, USF now.
Oh, Brian Hartline.
Yeah, Brian Hartline. I don't know why I can't remember his name half the time. It's gonna look a lot closer to a traditional Big Ten offense under Arthur Smith. I think gone are the days, and I think Brian Hartline kind of harped on this a little too much. Gone are the days of trying to out talent teams on the perimeter. I don't think we're going to see nearly as much of that in the modern. And I say modern from 2 years ago, maybe last year, definitely on of running the football more so than airing it out with your 8 5-star wide receivers and 5-star quarterback. I really like Jeremiah Smith, obviously. Behind him, I'm actually a little bit pessimistic about this team. They obviously bring in Devin McEwen behind Jeremiah Smith, I think because this team has lost a lot of faith in Brandon Inniss, who people have been talking about as a potential breakout candidate for like the past 3 years, and it just hasn't happened. He's a smaller frame guy, former high elite 5-star player who just hasn't panned out really, really well at Ohio State. Defensively, they're going to be very good. I think one of the biggest things that people aren't talking about is kicker because of how poor they were in it. Big Ten championship comes to mind when they missed like a 35-yard field goal. They bring in Connor Hawkins from Baylor, who 18 to 22, solid, decent, long of 54. That'll play 37 to 37 from extra points. This team is going to be very strong, like we've talked about. It's going to depend on how well Arthur Smith pans out at offense coordinator. Like I said, I think they're going to be very strong. I think they're going to look a lot closer to what Indiana was doing in terms of RPO and power run to set up, intermediate and some of those deep balls we saw to Elijah Surratt earlier in the season, and then towards the end of the season in the playoffs to Charlie Becker. I think this Ohio State's going to kind of take out of the Mike Shanahan offense in that regard and not try and be as flashy and as, elite. Like I know they have the talent to be, but I think they're going to take a step back in that regard and be more efficient and running the ball driven than, flashy. So I do have them second. I have them also at 10-2, 8-1, losing in the regular season to Indiana and then losing on the road to Texas in week 1.
And I'll say, Chris Henry Jr. is going to be a stud for him. I think that's another guy, wide receiver that they added that's going to be coming in super young freshman. But I from what you're hearing in spring about him, he's going to be a day one starter. And another Jeremiah Smith, I could list 100 receivers that have come through there in the last 5 years. Just another one of those guys, 6'5", 211, lanky, fast, run routes and catch the ball. He's really good. So I think be on the lookout for him to be another one of those guys next season that they're throwing it to. So,
yeah, I will say the only thing I think that could hold this team back slightly is that run game. We're kind of hit or miss last year, even though the stats are kind of misleading. Bo Jackson was a 1,000-yard rusher, just barely 6 yards per carry. But, I mean, they were very ineffective at times running the ball. So if they can take a step forward with that, especially with the retainment of 4 starters on the offensive line, I think this group can, elevate the ceiling of this team. And I think that happens. I think they win the national championship, run all the way to the end game. Indiana does the same for that in Jake's estimation, his national championship pick. All right, there is our full Big Ten standings right on the 2-hour mark, gentlemen. Great job tonight. A marathon, indeed. Just last final point on our standings. Any team from our collective rankings here kind of stand out as a outlier? For me personally, I mean, aside from my Michigan point of view, kind of shocked that like Jake has 2 10-2 teams kind of missing out on the playoff right here. That's a little shocking to me. But that's just my initial takeaway here.
Yeah, and like I talked about in your video that came out today, Reed,
on Love for the Game college football.
Yeah, on Love for the Game college football. Be sure to like and subscribe. Comment your favorite ice cream. I'm just generally lower on the entire like the bottom of my conference is going to be higher than the bottom of everybody else's because I think there's going to be a lot more eating the itself, the conference is there's gonna be
Cannibalism.
there's gonna be like a Michigan State's gonna upset somebody, not like Ohio State or anything, but like, and watch that's gonna happen now that I say that. But
Like
there's gonna be like,
Minnesota.
I have like a bunch of 2-win teams, so I'm just generally viewing this season a little bit differently, and I think most people are. To me, all of this makes sense. Like I perfectly understand a lot of logic here. The biggest outlier I think on a lot of ours is Michigan. Obviously, me and Jake are higher because I think they're all around. I'm not going to try and speak for Jake, but all around, I think they're very good.
Well, hold on. Wait, I got to change it. Hold on. There he is.
What?
What's going on, gentlemen?
Non-ball knower.
What in the world's going on? Michigan, non-ball knower. Why do you have Michigan at 10-2? What's your logic there?
Yeah, so my logic behind there at 10-2 is that I looked at this Michigan football team last year, right? Like under Sharon Moore, which I think like all of us in the room agree, and probably many of us in the live chat, right? Like agrees that man was an outright liability as a head coach. He was actively holding that program back. Meanwhile, I'm looking at Kyle Whittingham, like he's going to be a significant upgrade at the head coaching position. So I think the coaching is going to be so much better heading into this upcoming season. And so in spite of Sharon Moore being at the head of this for most of last year, like they were still a top 20 football team. So like I'm basically projecting Michigan to be in the top 15. I think going from Sharon Moore, who still had him somehow in the top 20 to top 25, to a Kyle Whittingham, and they make that jump to the top 15, that doesn't sound that crazy to me. So that's kind of where I'm coming from there. And then also, I know like Reed, you asked about as well, like having multiple 10-2 teams out. We saw this happen last year with Vanderbilt, for example. We saw this happen as well with BYU at 11-1. I think it is a situation where we are going to see multiple 10-11 win teams just get left out of the college football playoff because we do have this thing called winflation because we do have teams just generally afraid to schedule like in the non-conference.
Yeah, I'm also having a weird boat where I've got USC beating Penn State, but Penn State having a better overall record. So it's like a better in-conference record. So it's like, do you put USC in because they got the head-to-head, or do you put Penn State in because they're 7-2 instead of 6-3? It's that's I don't really know how. I don't know how they do that. I don't know how I would even rate that at the end of the year. I guess you've got to take USC, but then you're leaving out a 10-2 team. It's just a tough balance.
I want to ask Jake another question. Who do you have Michigan beating then? I can't remember what you said because I have their 2 losses as at Oregon and at Ohio State.
Yeah. So the 2 losses for Michigan.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think their 2 losses. I think they're going to both come in the month of November. I had them losing at Oregon as well and losing to Ohio State on the road.
Yeah, that's exactly what I have.
Yeah.
Me and Jake agree on something for once. I feel like we always disagree.
Yeah, I feel like every time me and you are on a live stream, we start a bar fight. It's cinema from.
We had a couple of those in this conference. I'm trying to see. We both had USC at 9-3. We were pretty locked in on this conference. I'm proud of us.
Yeah. I'm proud. We've gone so far, Cole. You and I aren't so different after all.
No. We both have Indiana at the top, Ohio State at 2, Oregon at 3.
Yeah, so the same exact thing about Indiana. I originally had them taking 1 more loss, but then because of the 5-for-5 rule and they integrate a major defensive piece, like that was enough for me to and there was a really small margin between like my top ranked team. Which I do have Indiana as my number 1 as my 6th ranked team, which is where originally I had Indiana. So because there was such a small gap, like that big time addition pushed them to the number 1 spot. And then I also had originally a different national champion because of that too. So
who was that? If you don't mind me asking.
I just don't even have the time to break down Indiana at number 6. Like if it wasn't already so late, I would ask you how you ever had that. Or I don't even want to know.
Number 5 or number 6, but originally I had like Notre Dame winning it all.
That's fair.
Did you have them with a bye week in the first round?
I think originally for Notre Dame, I did have them getting a bye week because I had them running the table, obviously, from when we did the Pac-12 / the independent teams prior to like me going on vacation and getting a little bit darker skin like from that vacation experience. But I didn't have them getting the #1 seed because that schedule is paper soft, and so I think that's going to hold them back a little bit. I think Indiana still finishes ahead of Notre Dame, like in the final rankings.
Yeah. To me, if Notre Dame gets a bye week, they're almost screwed because you can't we've already seen it be an issue with teams who get the bye week, just playing super rusty, especially with Notre Dame who won't even get a conference championship game. So they'll literally have a month off. I feel like it's almost better if they drop a game. That way they won't be, in theory, they would get a warm-up game because 2 years ago you saw they play Indiana in the first round and it ends up kind of benefiting them. They weren't as rusty going into bigger games down the pipeline there.
Yeah.
All right. There you go. 2 hours and 7 minutes and a special appearance by a non-ball knower. We have made it to the end here, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. Jake, thank you for the magical guest appearance. Oh my God, Mr. Cornhusker is back. I gotta laugh every time I see that shit.
Just absolute cinema. Listen, I'm just happy for the opportunity that I can get down to my fingers the countdown how many days that we have till to kick off. So I mean, it's right around the corner. There's been a lot of talk, some things happening in the off season, various things happening in our sport, and the fact that we can focus in now on spotting the damn ball and getting this thing rolling. I'm very ecstatic for it. And we have a special season in store. I can feel it in the air.
And before we sign off, I'm going to give my first lock, my first lock of the season. It's going to be Cal laddered to -13.5 over UCLA.
Here we go again.
Here
Absolute
we go.
Lock.
Here we go again. There he goes.
There goes that man.
Yeah. So. Also, real quick before we get out of here, I just wanted to mention it on the live show in case people didn't see it. Our first announcement of the Red Zone road trip next week. AT, myself, and friend of the program, Mike Moore, college football, will be heading to Charlottesville, Virginia for NC State against Virginia. What was going to be in Brazil is now in Charlottesville. And also a special appearance by Mr. DJ Diesel Shaq himself will be in attendance at Charlottesville. So happy to see the big man. Going to be happy to see the big man himself, but more ecstatic to finally watch college football and have the privilege of attending in person. So
being at the prime time game, CJ Bailey. I mean, come on, what more could we want for week 0?
AT's favorite quarterback in the ACC, CJ Bailey.
I'm so stoked.
CJ Bailey and Bo Prabula.
So stoked.
Bo Prabula. What a pull.
How's that? What a pull.
Oh, I thought you meant as AT's favorite quarterbacks.
No, CJ Bailey. CJ Bailey.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with CJ Bailey. I can't wait.
He is. Yeah. The only person I see obsessed with him is AT.
Like and subscribe. Right. Hit subscribe. Comment your favorite ice cream. Comment your national championship pick. Comment your favorite letter on Jake's shirt.
Comment your favorite Red Zone member. Actually, it won't be me.
Comment who the biggest non-ball knower is.
Comment reads a P for jabroni. Yeah, exactly.
Comment,
all the above.
Comments. Call us slurs. Call us names in the comments.